Welcome, travelers. Let's take a trip to the Caribbean, to an island in the middle of a crystal blue sea. Antigua, a small island in the West Indies, was an island formerly controlled by the British Empire. The Earl of Carlisle claimed the island in 1520, while it was still under the protection of Great Britain, establishing colonies and towns much more successfully than the French. The island was signed officially to the British in 1667 by means of the Treaty of Brenna. In 1493, Columbus discovered the island of Santa Maria la Antigua, or as we know it today, Antigua. From 1520 to 1667, a period of nearly 150 years, the island was consistently a hub for the happenings and events of the new age of Western imperialism. At the end of the 17th century, slavery was becoming a main source of labor for the island's vast sugar plantations.
In 1981, Antigua officially gained its independence from Great Britain. After the country's independence, a social caste system was put in place that still left the white British people on top of the pyramid.
Fast forward to the future, Antigua today has a population of over 90,000, 90% of which are Afro-Antiguans.
The capital of the island is St. John's, and it's become quite the magnet for the tourist industry. While Antigua may seem like the perfect getaway from Norwich, there's a lot more that meets the eye there. One of the most famous people is Jamaica Kincaid, and her best-selling novel, A Small Place, gives us a little bit more insight into what's really going on in Antigua.
Wow, sounds like a remarkable country, Neal.
Miss Kincaid was born in 1949 in Antigua. She was of native Antiguan descent, so she came from a relatively poor background. Her father was a cab driver and had other various professions, but at age 17 she left the island and changed her name to Jamaica Kincaid.
Wait, so you're telling me her name wasn't Jamaica Kincaid?
No, actually, her name used to be Elaine Potter Richardson before she moved from Antigua at 17. She went to New York to study photography at the New School of Social Research and currently lives in Vermont.
This interview gives the reasoning behind why she changed her name to Jamaica Kincaid.
Started to write about my family. Immediately I wanted to write. I knew I would write about them. And I also thought I would fail at it, but the failing wouldn't have made me not do it, didn't make me not do it. If I changed my name, they wouldn't know I was writing about them, and if I failed at it, they wouldn't laugh at me. They wouldn't know it was me, and so they wouldn't laugh at me. It was something as simple as that. Now,
after reading the book, Neal and I wanted to analyze Miss Kincaid's strong words of disdain towards the status of the country and the chaos that it was in. You pass a building sitting in a sea of dust and you think, it's some latrines for people just passing by. But when you look at it again, you see the building has written on it, Pigott School. You pass the hospital, the Holberton Hospital, and how wrong you are to think about that. For though you are a tourist on your holiday, what if your heart should miss a few beats? What if a blood vessel in your neck should break? What if one of those people, driving those brand new cars filled with the wrong gas, fails to pass safely while going uphill in a curve, and you were in the car going the opposite direction? Will you be comforted to know the hospital is staffed with doctors that no actual Antiguan trusts? That the Antiguans always say about the doctors, "I don't want them near me." That the Antiguans refer to them not as doctors, but as the three men. There are three of them. From this quote, we can see that there is a huge infrastructure problem in Antigua. The fact that no native Antiguan would trust their own local hospital, and that they don't consider the staff to be actual doctors, is beyond belief. This shows the state that the country is in and the problems that it faces.
But why is the country in such bad shape? What are the roots of the problem, and is there any hope to improve the country's social and economic status?
Actually, it boils down to what you can and cannot see. Just the other day when I was researching Antigua, I got more results for the tourism industry in Antigua rather than the economic conditions or the history of the country.
Sandals Antigua Resort and Spa, a part of the prestigious Sandals Signature Collection, where the highest levels of hospitality and service come together in the most magical of settings. And now, the ultimate paradise for two has even more to fall in love with.
When you think of Antigua, you think of the white sandy beaches, the pools, and the tropical drinks. You don't really get to see the other aspects of the island.
It's a case of post-imperialism inequality. When the governing country leaves, there's no way for the newly independent country to economically sustain itself. There are no leaders or experienced members that can promote positive economic growth.
The people who benefited the most from this inequality are the bankers and people of British heritage. Most of their power has been inherited from their ancestors and what they did in history on the island. One of the biggest financial companies in the world, Barclays Bank, originated in Antigua.
The Barclay brothers, who started Barclays Bank, were slave traders. That is how they made their money. When the English outlawed the slave trade, the Barclay brothers went into banking. It made them even richer. It's possible that when they saw how rich banking made them, they gave themselves a good beating for opposing an end to slave trading, for surely they would have not opposed that. But then again, they may have been visionaries and agitated for an end to slavery, for look at how rich they became with their banks borrowing from, through their savings, the descendants of the slaves and then lending back to them. A small place describes the gated mansions, houses overlooking the cities of the corrupt white politicians and business owners that are part of the island's economic system. In the book, Jamaica Kincaid somberly describes an old library with the sign on it that says, "Repairs are pending," since the earthquake in 1974.
The unequal economic conditions left behind by the British have caused the country to fall into a hole. As Miss Kincaid puts it, mostly fat, rich, white tourists go to play and go on vacation, while many live in poverty.
Rarely will you see people, tourists, ever step into the impoverished areas of Antigua. Sometimes it looks like you're stepping through a time portal to a time 30 years ago, where the cars, shops, and people were totally different. Looking at the situation of the island critically, you can make a correlation from the caste system today, present, to the one formed by slavery and plantation labor almost 200 years ago.
Yeah. In the past, white plantation owners and politicians were above the slaves and locals that populated the island, and they received all the trade income. Today, heads of banks and government agencies are richer and more powerful than the hardworking native Antiguans who were there all along.
Yeah, the titles may have changed, but the top dogs are still secluded in their mansions, while the majority of native Antiguans have to struggle to just put bread on the table for their families.
Miss Kincaid writes with such conviction about these aspects of her home country. But are they biased? Like, is that all really true? Like, do you have any numbers that can support that?
The tourism industry really doesn't show the true Antiguan way of life. The average GDP in Antigua is only $18,400. Compare that to the $52,800 in America. Now, another astonishing fact, Neal, is that 60% of this GDP right here comes from the tourism industry, while 40% invested into the country of Antigua is invested into the tourism and resort industry. So you can see how it plays a big part in the country's economic role.
Unfortunately, offshore shareholders and corporations make up the unbalanced financial hierarchy, right? This means that there aren't many local owners that have the ability to compete against the big corporations that built the island.
In terms of institutions like healthcare and education, Antigua is ranked a lot lower than most big countries in the Western Hemisphere. In 2009, 5.4% of America's GDP was spent on the education system, while only 2.4% was spent in Antigua. You can see the big gap in terms of spending and what the priorities are in the country.
Wow, those are some astonishing numbers, but where does all the money go?
So you figure most of the money put into the country goes to the resort and tourism industry and eventually is distributed down to the workers who are part of that industry. What you don't know is that 50% of the money that goes into Antigua's tourism industry is lost. It's called leakage. When tourists or guests of the resorts ask for higher quality services or want better amenities, the money that goes into the tourism industry is lost there, which means less money for the workers.
Also, all aspects of self-sustainability are taken away when the industry sells things like all-inclusive packages. For local businesses, an all-inclusive package means that the tourists will not be buying anything from them, like food or other supplies.
This is a diagram explaining leakages. Inbound country expenses represent the amount of money it takes to run a resort. When customers ask for better destination-specific expenses, such as lodging, food services, or other amenities, revenues from the local economy are decreased as money that would normally go to them stay within the resort to improve services. The resort industry is mostly owned by large corporations that operate on a worldwide scale. This gives little chance for the local inns and breakfast houses to see their revenues compete with these behemoths of corporations. Now, this economic turmoil caused by these resorts is caused by a period of long-standing colonization with a quick withdrawal. I'm talking about the British Empire. So this leaves no government or financial support for the locals, the ones who are left stranded without anything to do. This gives the opportunity for those big resorts to come in and take over and dominate the economic sector.
Jamaica Kincaid's book really puts in perspective how clueless most tourists are of their ignorance in a country like Antigua. They're so self-centered that nothing is being done to fix the balance of power in a country where the majority have no chance to make any revenue at all.
Well, one thing's for sure. Miss Kincaid is a beacon of hope for the impoverished Antiguans who yearn for representation in a world that overlooks them. Her unique way of describing her homeland brings attention to all that is wrong in the country and the people who are taking no measure to fix it.
Traveling here has been an eye-opening experience, and we can only hope that people will take Miss Kincaid's message to heart and use it to improve and bring attention to the condition of the beautiful country. A shard of the past, a fragment of something that was once great and beautiful, a small place named Antigua.